Coogs house. The NBA draft lottery is over. We know the top of the draft order. And as much controversy as there is up top, Houston Cougar fans had their eyes set on Milos Uzan the second round and what happens later. So what's going to happen?
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, the daily podcast all about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth. Whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to stop by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. Be sure you make us your first listen each and every day, especially with this bonus edition of Locked On Cougs. Out today, talk about the NBA draft lottery, the set draft order, and Milos Uzan's role in all of that. Today's show is brought to you by America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel. So make sure you check that out. We'll be talking more about that later. But the NBA draft order being set means we have more light to be shed on the Milos Uzan situation. Now, with the order being out, we have at least an understanding of who picks where and what that could do to different teams' needs. The shakeup at the top does mean different teams be drafting guards early. What that could do for guards late is always interesting when you're paying attention to what Milos Uzan does. So quick bonus, we're going to get in here pretty quickly, but I'll make sure we talk some about this. First, I should point out that Milos Uzan and his father, Mike Uzan, talked some with Paper City Magazine on Monday. Milos and his father in the Chicago right now for the draft combine and festivities. The dad commented to Paper City that Milos would only be staying in the draft for a guaranteed money selection. That would imply that some team has told him with a guarantee, you won't fall past us at XYZ pick. And now that we have the full draft order after Monday night, we have a better idea of where those picks will happen. Now, those picks for the guaranteed money are traditionally considered first-round picks. First-round picks in the NBA draft get a contract. Second-round picks are not guaranteed a contract. However, sometimes you do see teams say, listen, we guarantee we won't let you fall past us at 38 or whatever, and they guarantee a guy a pick. That has happened sometimes. We're going to get to in a second. Last year, the top 40 picks, so the first 10 of the second round and all of the first round, were guaranteed money, guaranteed contracts. But in the last third of the draft, picks 41 through 58, only 6 players were guaranteed or got a contract with guaranteed money on it. Only 3 of those players got multi-year deals. Yes, one of those was Jamal Shead, who got a deal with Toronto. It sounds like that actually might have been one of these kind of deals where Toronto said, listen, we're not going to let you fall past us at 45. Trust us here. For what it's worth, one of the other 3 was Bronny James, who we know his connection to the Lakers that ultimately drafted him pretty late, right? And so things can be kind of shaky after that 40th pick, after that 35th pick, on whether or not you get guaranteed money. Now, Milos is a guy with pro prospects and pro talent. He has already done some workouts for San Antonio, Utah, and Denver. He's going to be working out the NBA Combine this week. He's in the group doing 5-on-5 scrimmages. I should point out, not every player signs up to do the 5-on-5 scrimmages. Some guys don't think it will help them as much as just the measurements or the interviews and all that kind of stuff, whatever they're choosing to do and not do. He opted and is going to get to do some of those scrimmages as well to kind of show off what his game looks like in an NBA kind of atmosphere. Biggest difference there is a traditionally more spacing because there is no defensive 3 seconds, or there is no defensive player allowed to be in the lane for 3 seconds. So more moving and movement and pace and all that comes with that, which could all help Milos for what it's worth. But the Uzans made very clear, Paper City, Sampson made clear earlier in this process that Milos is only staying in this for a guaranteed money spot that's, again, traditionally considered a first-round spot. He had some NBA draft buzz out of high school, but I think it's worth noting that Milos' time at Oklahoma kind of led him to have almost no draft buzz as a 6'4" point guard out of high school. Again, there was some there, but it really took that year at Houston to propel him to that point. And Uzan's conversation with Paper City made it very clear that they understand like the relationship that they built with Houston on that. And then if they don't get that guarantee spot after talking to people at the combine, that they will ultimately come back to Houston afterwards, right? Sampson has done this ordeal before. He talked about it earlier in the process, but he encourages, Kelvin Sampson, that is, he encourages guys to go through with this, to get the feedback, get the evaluation. And you have until May 28th this year. It's a little different day every year, but it's always about 10 days after the combine. You have until May 28th this year to ultimately decide to stay in the draft or come back to college. You used to have to pick if you wanted to sign an agent or not, with NIL deals and stuff like that. In modern college basketball, it's really just checking the box. Do you want to stay in the draft or not by May 28th? You saw Marcus Sasser do this in the spring of 2022, decided to come back in the 2022-23 season, was an All-American. Jamal Shead did the same thing in the spring of 2023, did the combine, came back to Houston, was an All-American and the Big 12 Player of the Year in 2023-24, right? It is not uncommon for Sampson to send guys off and do this by any stretch. The Sampsons have both commented, Kelvin and Kellen, that this is kind of the one time they want guys to be a little selfish and go see what their prospects are like. All kids grow up wanting to play in the NBA. That's not an uncommon dream or anything like that. And these kids are making that a reality in their time at Houston. That's good for the brand and program ultimately, right? But I think that what's interesting about what Kellen has said about this, and I think it's worthwhile and a piece of the culture here, you don't want a guy to stick around that has not done this but wanted to, because then they're always going to kind of be wondering, what if? And that can ultimately be detrimental to what you're building at Houston. You want guys to have completely explored their options and sign up to be in the program, and that way aren't going to think about, like, well, if I had just gone to the draft, I could be making all this, and the other. Like, no, you had your chance, you checked it out, you saw it and made a decision, right? And I think that that's an interesting part and thing to keep in mind here. The Uzans, again, are making that decision sometime before May 28th. Right now, after the NBA draft order is out, ESPN and Jonathan Givony have him projected to go number 43 overall to, pulling it up here, to the Utah Jazz. They have him as I have down the 11th point guard taken. For what it's worth, Utah is a team he's worked out for. 43rd pick would not be any guaranteed money. And for what it's worth, it's kind of outside of that kind of fringe range of the first round as well. Givony has a lot of research, has talked to a lot of NBA guys when he puts this together. And this is given the order. So, like, such and such Ace Bailey's going to there, or Tahad Pettiford's going to there in the earlier second round, or wherever, right? Wherever people are projecting, right, for whatever reason they have the guys. And this is not an NBA draft show where I have a bunch of insights as to why people take who, where, or whatever, right? But it is to say that that's where Givony has him projected, given the actual order we have now. Sporting News, that was interesting, actually had him a little bit higher. Sporting News had him up at 37 to the Detroit Pistons. This seems a little bit more random, and for what it's worth, the Sporting News draft as a whole was a little bit more random and randomized, where he was Uzan was the 11th point guard in the ESPN mock draft, given the order. They didn't actually differentiate between any types of guards on Sporting News. They had him down as the 15th guard with 14 guards, for whatever that means, going before him. And I say that to say that they also had on Sporting News 6 guards in the first 7 picks of the second round. I've only watched the NBA draft as a fan, not as an analyst. I do think that if you see a run on guards like that, you typically see a handful go at once, because people don't want to mess around and miss theirs or whatever, right? Whatever the case may be, Milos continues to be going into the actual workouts and stuff like that in the meat of this week, projected to be in the first half of the second round, but not in the first couple of picks of the second round. And I wonder what that's going to mean as far as the air quotes guarantee goes. That he did not say first rounder, I think, is significant here, because teams, again, do guarantee guys that they might want to take someone in the early part of the second round if they guarantee. Those guarantees, again, happen the first few picks of the second round typically. The top few picks of the second round in order now that we have it are Minnesota at the top of the round, Boston via Washington pick, Charlotte again. You got Philadelphia, you've got Detroit, you've got San Antonio, you've got Toronto, you've got Washington. Not all of those teams need point guards in the top first 10 picks there. You do have a couple like the Brooklyn Nets who are looking at guys. They just need a lot of help, or maybe Charlotte, needs a lot of help. So it depends on what they take earlier in the draft, or, Minnesota's kind of got a couple pieces. What are they looking to fill in around the gaps, whatever. I thought Detroit by the Sporting News was an interesting pick because I think of point guard being like the one position they feel pretty set in, but I could see the similarity in a big point guard like Milos versus a big point guard like Cade Cunningham and what they do there. Whatever the case may be, as more information comes out throughout the week, we're going to be breaking it down here at Locked on Cougs, which is brought to you each and every day by our buddies over at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. The NBA playoffs, full swing. Some of these playoff teams need point guards. That's what we're talking about it. But as they're having these unforgettable kind of nights and can't miss moments, game-winning action, game-winning shots, you can get in on it as well. Same-game parlays, follow in live game action, and the $200 bonus bet if that first $5 bet hits feels so sweet. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it hits, get $200 back in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Probably just Locked on Cougs wrapping up here, but I do want to point out as we look at this whole thing, whatever the case may be, and what Milos decides to do, we're going to know a lot more in the next 10 to 15 days. But on the whole, Houston is very comfortable running it back with just Kingston Fleming, Pop Isaacs, and Mercy Miller and KJ, the guard room they've got. They could also, you could see they add someone else potentially who comes out of the draft as well. Names to keep an eye on there be like LeBaron Philon or guys like that have high pro potential. Want to get in the guard work with the Sampsons and kind of see where their names go. Whatever the case is, we'll be following it each and every day here at Locked on Cougs. So subscribe, hit the bell so you know we're live. Locked on Cougs is a proud member of the Locked on Podcast Network. That means your team every day. Go Cougs.